This is the Star News Brief. I'm Susan Kiprano. The empowerment of the youth, women and people with disabilities through the reservation of at least 30% of state procurements for the disadvantaged group seems to be merely on paper. A report by the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority has revealed that most county and national government agencies aren't reserving the tenders for the lot. The report, tabled in Parliament, further discloses that most of the government entities aren't filing their procurement documents with the authority to ascertain their compliance with the 30% reservation requirements as stipulated in the law. In the report that captures procurements by state and county government entities for the second half of the 2019-2020 financial year, only 148 entities submitted to PPRA their procurement contracts. Get a copy of The Star by subscribing to our e-paper for only 10 shillings by dialing *550*3#. The Interior Ministry is on the spot following audit findings pointing out mismanagement of the country's civil registries. Auditor General Nancy Gathungu, in a report tabled in Parliament, revealed that the Civil Registration Department hasn't been listing all deaths and births. The auditor reported that civil registration services cannot fully account for all births and deaths since registration rates are still below 100%. The auditor raised concern that the government, through the registration services, hasn't created a need or urgency for mandatory citizen listing. Thus, citizens don't seem to be aware of the need for civil registration and the importance of obtaining birth and death certificates. President Uhuru Kenyatta and his handshake partner Raila Odinga have locked out DP William Ruto and his allies from the ongoing BBI consensus building, in what is seen as setting the stage to push the DP for a contest in the proposed referendum to ratify some of the constitutional amendments contained in the report. Uhuru and Raila have separately met some of the leaders who have raised reservations on the report. On Monday last week, the two co-chaired a meeting in Naivasha that brought together Jubilee's Kieleweke faction and ODM legislators. On Friday last week, President Uhuru held talks with Musalia Mudavadi, Kalonzo Musyoka and Moses Wetangula at State House, Nairobi. Ruto has repeatedly called for consensus, with the latest being on Saturday during the wedding of Nakuru Senator Susan Kihika and businessman Sam Mburu. Suspension of major betting firms in Kenya dented Safaricom's income for the first 6 months of the year, with the value of transactions from the segment dropping by 59.3%. The firm's half-year financial results released yesterday shows the value of transactions from betting dropped to 49.2 billion shillings from 83 billion shillings in a similar period last year. The Kenya Betting Control and Licensing Board revoked licenses for SportPesa and Betin, which controlled up to 70% of sport betting in the country over tax compliance disputes. The shutdown of major betting firms and zero rating of M-Pesa transactions to cushion low-income users from ravages of COVID-19 saw general M-Pesa earnings drop 14.5% to 35.9 billion compared to 42 billion shillings the previous year. The waiver of fees for M-Pesa transactions below 1,000 shillings in March denied the company 9 billion shillings in revenue in the first 6 months of the year. Tob Cohen's widow Sarah Wairimu now wants the court to declare her trial for the alleged murder of her husband a mistrial. In an application filed in court last Friday by her lawyers, Wairimu argues that the case against her is founded on hearsay and that it was built on malicious investigation processes with a view to deny her the right to inherit her matrimonial properties after the death of her husband. Wairimu, who had a rocky marriage with the late Dutch businessman Cohen, is accused of masterminding the disappearance of her husband in July last year. The decomposing body of Cohen was later discovered in an underground water tank at their home along Farasi Lane in Loresho. She's denied the murder charges. She lodged the petition in the Constitutional and Human Rights Division of the High Court to undermine the foundation of the charges with a hope to quash them. Transport CS James Macharia said the helicopter that crashed in Narok County on October 17th hadn't developed mechanical hitches prior to the accident. In a preliminary report on the crash, which involved Governor Samuel Tunai, the CS said that the pilot reported that before the flight, he had made 3 flights that day, each with 2 passengers on board. The 3 flights on a Robinson R44 Raven 2 registration 5Y MEP, operated by the Karen Blixen Camp Trust, were uneventful. Tunai had attended a burial ceremony at Milili, and after the function, the pilot planned to fly him to the southeastern side of the Mao Forest to inspect the extent attempt of deforestation en route to Alenquipejos village. The pilot reported having aborted the plan due to unfavorable weather conditions at the destination. Get a copy of The Star by subscribing to our e-paper for only 10 shillings by dialing *550*3#. You can also get more on the Star website.